Welcome to another episode from our Growth Tips series, the only place to grow you and your business and live the life you want to live. In this episode, we look at how to set up and manage a direct mail campaign. Depending on your target, direct mail could be an ideal medium to reach your audience. We seem to be going through a cycle. 25 years ago, you could send someone a personally addressed letter. They'd read it, and you get what you wanted from them. As people started abusing that, we'd get more junk mail, and over time, people started to not even open their mail. We'd subconsciously know from the envelope what was junk mail and what wasn't. Then it would be put straight into the bin without even opening it. Then we got into email. That was the same. You could reach anyone and communicate with your target. The only hurdle was getting their email address. If you managed that, you could get to whoever you wanted to reach. Again, most emails don't even get open now. With most spammers turning to email now, there seems to be much less physical mail delivered. So for a highly targeted piece of physical mail, with a good reason to read it, this is starting a new lease of life as one way for reaching your audience, obviously depending on who your audience is. With any form of advertising, you should ask two questions. Number one, does it allow you to specifically target your ideal prospect? And number two, does it provide a high return on investment? In other words, if it costs you £10 to do the advertising, how much does it give you back in sales? Maybe it's £20, maybe it's £100, or maybe it's less than what you paid. Some say that you should start with creating a good response rate through a direct mail campaign before looking at any other form of advertising. This is because an offer that does well in a letter would do well in other types of media. And if you're comparing the cost of a piece of direct mail compared to a magazine advert, you'll learn what works much more cheaply this way. Saying that to scale a business on direct mail is going to be very costly in the long run, especially if you've got someone, or even worse, if you're writing personalized messages yourself to thousands of targets. Remember, it's not just about the financial cost, it's about your time cost, and it's about your opportunity cost. All of these should be weighed up, but for now, you're just trying to perfect and test the message. The good news about direct mail is that it's virtually unlike any other when it comes to personalizing it to the audience. If you know John suffers from back pain, you can include that in your mailing as a way to demonstrate exactly how personal your business can be. When testing your efforts, you'll want to start with a good sized target audience. Let's say at least 100 targets. This lets you see how effective it will be. But you'll ideally do this with all forms of advertising, so you can get an accurate measurement. The way to do this is research 100 targets you think will be profitable. Study their website, their social media, etc. Call or contact them to discover who would be the perfect person to deal with. Who is the perfect person to take your inquiry forward? Now, at this point, be prepared to give your pitch, as you might just get put through to the decision maker, especially if the person answering the phone is new and hasn't been trained on screening callers yet. Next, write all of your letters to the target person, explaining why they'll benefit from what you do. They don't care about the technical details, only getting the job done. Close the letter by stating when and how you'll follow up the letter. For example, you might say, I'll call you on Tuesday at 3 p.m. to arrange a meeting. Then make that call. If they're interested, they'll either reply or they'll take your call, or have their assistant book you a meeting. If not, they'll just not take your call. If you can't get a meeting, or whatever your desired outcome is, ask when would be a good time to follow up. Remember, unless someone is looking for your service at that moment in time, it's probably not on their priority list, but they might still be interested. So keep all of this information in a database and then set reminders. If you wanted to, you could break the number down from 100 targets to, say, 10 targets a week. This way it won't take you weeks just to find your target names, and you can get going quickly. If this is your approach though, commit to the full 100, or whatever initial target you've set. It's likely you won't get any response from probably 80 to 90 of those, and so you might lose hope and abandon the project, especially if the good ones don't come until the 10th week. The next point is making sure your target is right. First of all, make sure you've identified your ideal customer as your foundation step in this process. After that, understand who actually makes the decision, especially if it's a bigger company rather than an individual. In a bigger company, there will be a few individuals who influence that decision, and you may believe the purchasing department is the decision maker. They might actually just be doing all of that legwork for someone else to give a final approval, such as a finance director. Look at your existing customers. If you already have a similar ideal customer, have a look at who makes that final sign-off and who influences that decision. If it's a similar sized business in the same industry, it's likely that it will work in a very similar way. Find 2 or 3 that work in the same way, and you've got a foolproof plan for that target market then. Mailing lists. Now, I've met and worked with people who have told me they have every business in a particular sector. Digging deeper, I've discovered all they actually have is a basic contact list of organizations in their target sector. Now, having a database of target buyers takes many years to build up. Even if you have a list of every purchasing manager, names and telephone numbers, it still doesn't mean that much. Having their name doesn't mean you own them as a customer. There's merits in buying a mailing list, but don't buy a mailing list just because you believe it gives you access to those individuals and companies, expecting that they'll all buy from you. If that's your plan, you'll walk away from it long before any of them actually part with their cash. Saying that, if you do want to buy a list, they're typically sold on a cost per thousand basis, and most list owners work on an entire industry or region. So they might insist on you buying a list of people thousands of miles away just because they fit into your target industry. The perfect list will always be one you've built up yourself over time. Think of a list not as a bunch of contact details, but as a set of relationships you've built. That's what actually makes a business successful. Even if someone's not purchased from you, there's a good chance you'll have built some kind of rapport with them. Selling to your ideal customer isn't about getting married on the first date. Build that relationship over time. Keep in touch with them. Help them get what they want. And they'll automatically think of you the next time they need what you are offering. You should work with the number of targets that your budget allows you to. For example, if it costs you £10 per target to mail them, for the next 6 months, and you only have £100, you focus on 10 targets only. These are people that you'll put your message in front of as much as possible. As we said earlier, try to make your initial target audience a fairly good size of 100 targets, even if that figure is spread over a course of a year. Ideally, if your budget allows, the target figures should be around 500 targets. But the number really comes back to how much you want to grow your business and what the conversion rate is. Let's look at an example so you can see what I mean. So here's an example. Let's say you've got turnover of 300,000 now. You want to double in size over the next 12 months. That's perfectly feasible and relatively easy to do, so not a big expectation. So assuming your existing turnover is relatively stable and will continue without additional marketing effort, you need 300,000 of new customers. Next, you'll want to calculate what your average customer spends with you. And you'll do that by taking your total turnover figure and then dividing it by the number of customers. Now, every business is different, so let's assume your average customer spends 25,000 with you, which means you need to find 12 new customers. That's one every month. Now let's assume you have a 50% sign-up rate at the quotation stage. That means you need to be doing 2 quotes a month, or 24 in the year. To get to quotation stage, we'll assume you have a 50% acceptance rate after meeting them and requesting that you provide a quotation for your offering. That means you now need to be meeting 4 targets a month, or 48 over the next 12 months. Now, to get to that meeting stage, we'll assume you have a 20% success rate from your mailings. This means to reach your goal of doubling in size in the next 12 months, you need to be mailing at least 20 targets a month, or 240 over the next 12 months. By breaking the desired outcome down into these stages, you can see exactly how many you need to be targeting and when you need to target them. As a general rule, focus on communicating with a smaller group of, say, 100 10 times, rather than a larger group of 3,000 and only communicating once. If you have a list, it's always best to call them up and check that it's still current. Your mailing won't have much impact if John, the purchasing director, retired 3 months ago, but your mailing is still sent to him. Your sales letter. Now, you won't get far if you aren't including the right things. Again, the content of this should be tested to get the best result, and it should be an evolving process. Find what works, use that for the majority, but try and see what response you get from others. Let's say for 10% of your annual campaign, if you find something that works better, you can add it to your original mailing. Things that work at this stage will also be copied across to other advertising later on. The sales letter should include the following. It should include the headline. This should scream out to your audience that this letter is worth your time. If you don't get this right, you don't get the attention of your audience. Next, state your problem. Let them know you understand the problem that they have and their frustrations. Stir up the problem. Tell them what the implications of this problems are, the costs, the impact on business, the frustrations, the status, etc. Then paint a hopeful future. Reveal what life is like for those you've already helped to solve that problem. Next, outline a solution. Show them you have an idea that can give them relief. Show the benefits of your solution. Then answer objections. Address the objections that you know your prospects might have. You'll know these because they'll normally be common questions that get asked by your customers and prospects previously. Next, make an offer. Offer a free report, a workshop, a CD, or other free or low-cost information product. Create a call to action. Tell them why and how they should contact you to get this offer. And don't forget the PS. Always end with a PS. Some people call this the second headline. This is the second most read part of a letter, so make sure you restate your offer or main benefit in this. Don't forget to tell them why. Your why is your selling tool. Don't forget to include the reason for being in business. Write as you talk. Use subheadlines in the copy. This helps get the message across if people are skim reading. Use quotes. Testimonials are perfect for that. Use active voice. Change passive verbs to active verbs. And finally, tell stories. Talk about how your customer uses your product. Direct mail doesn't have to be letters. If you're mailing them 8 times in the next 6 months, you could send part of those in other formats. Postcards that detail special offers, maybe a glossy flyer. Obviously, all of this depends on your audience. If it's a receptionist that sees your mailings, a glossy flyer would very likely just be put straight in the bin and would never reach your target. But if it's a homeowner, there's at least a 75% chance that their eyes will scan it and see your headline or your offer. Postcards are great for special offers, for coupons, for news announcements, and for product announcements. Why not take your postcards to your next networking event? Rather than handing out business cards, you're giving out highly targeted postcards instead. Handwritten notes as a direct response tool, or even birthday cards. The secret to direct mailing success is think small, think focused, think personal, think value, and think follow-up. Let's look more in depth at each of these for a minute. So think small. Build the smallest information-rich list that you can. Think focused. Always keep your ideal customer and how they buy in the back of your mind. Think personal. Include any personal details in your database. Not just names, but birthdays, hobbies, interests. Handwritten letters are much more personal than generic, bulk, computer-generated letters. Rather than addressing it to Mr. Peterson, instead address it to John. Think value. Combine advertising with a call to action that provides value to the reader. Offer free content, free trials, access to special events, etc. Think follow-up. A personal follow-up mechanism is best. For example, in your letter, tell the reader you'll call and ask permission to send him some information or provide him with something of value. So here's a quick example for a consultant. First, she builds a list of 150 dentists in her area from an industry register. She sent a personal letter to each one, mentioning things she noted about their websites. She then followed up by phone and booked 18 appointments. From the 18 appointments, she converted 5 into customers. The total cost of marketing was 2 days of her time and £100. Revenue generated was 100,000 plus the lifetime value, which could have been 5 or 6 times that. And packages always get opened. A box is a packaged direct mail. A balloon arrangement, a bunch of flowers with a note, or just an envelope with a keyring. People are always curious about packages and will always open them. You want to start with your core marketing message, your core point of difference or benefit. Think of some unique items, some trinkets or packaging that will help communicate your core message. One example might be a basketball hoop saying, "We'll jump through hoops to keep you satisfied." Or a box of keys with a message that reads, "With a key to your success." This is a metaphor for the message you're trying to communicate. Repetition. You should aim at 3 installments in your campaign. Don't give the call to action until the end of the campaign. Build a series. If your audience isn't familiar with your business, create your 3 pieces in a story fashion. Each piece builds on the last and delivers an integrated message. This also builds intrigue. Perhaps send the first piece in a packaged mail campaign without company name, without your logo or return address. In each piece, imply there's more to come. People will always look forward to the next piece. And finally, you'll want to determine what you want the final outcome or the call to action to be and deliver it in the last piece. Make it clear to them in the last piece exactly what it's been about. This might be to visit a web page, attend a workshop, take your call, or call your office. The expense of a direct mail investment. So consider how many new customers you need. What is the lifetime value of each customer? If a customer is worth 10,000 a year, then spending £100 to win that customer might be well worth it. Why not target 10 prospects, throw everything at them, and watch your turnover go through the roof? Next is a consistent contact strategy. People don't always need what you offer right now. The only way to get around this issue is repeated contact and exposure to your message and to your offers. Contact them at least 8 to 10 times a year. That helps to keep your business front of mind when it comes to them needing your product or services. Here's an example calendar. So in month 1, you send a letter announcing a new service or change to an existing service. Month 2, you might send a newsletter. Month 3, a phone call. All the way through to month 12. A checklist of helpful tips for your industry or service. So here's the actions for this learning session. Identify 10 target customers. Write your sales letter. Design your campaign. And then, most importantly, measure the results. And that's it. Thanks for watching. I hope you've got some value from this. You can download the workbook by clicking the link below. If you think others would get some value from this, please invite them to join the various social media groups and pages. And that's it until the next time. Thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you next time.